Hi you guys, my name is Muskan and today I'll be talking to you guys about the global biodiversity crisis and how mammals are so severely affected by it. Let's actually talk about what mammals are. So mammals are defined by the Kids Britannica, an animal that breathes air and has a backbone. So breathing air would involve coming up to the surface, for example, for dolphins that actually live underwater, and they have a backbone, which means they're vertebrates, and that means that they have an inside backbone that moves. And so the third point in being a mammal is that they have to have hair, which means that they will grow hair at some point in their lives or be born with it. For example, a lot of mammals like dogs and bears are born furless and then they grow fur pretty soon after. But for humans, we are born with a little bit of hair, but when puberty hits, we grow a lot of fur or hair. And also, to be a mammal, all the female mammals actually produce milk to nourish the young and to make sure that they grow up to be healthy. And also, the end of this slide shows that mammals are very intelligent. For example, we can look at dolphins here mentioned. Dolphins can use logic, and a lot of mammals can imitate humans. Humans are also mammals. We use a huge part of our brains, and we have bigger brains compared to a lot of other not mammals. And the next slide is talking about critically endangered species because of hunting. So in the pictures, there is a black rhinoceros, which is very critically endangered, and there are not that many left in the world because they are hunted or poached because of the horns on their noses. Now, these are sold as ivory, and they're very expensive and found around the world, but it's illegal, and it should not be sold like this because they are being poached for no reason except for that the ivory can be used. A lot of cultures say that it's medicinal. We don't know that for sure. The next is a tiger. So tigers are sold for their fur. They have very thick skin and they can be sold as carpets or coats, fur coats. And the last one on here is an elephant. An elephant is sold for the skin and its tusks, which are also made of ivory. And the skin is very thick, so it makes good leather. Let's go to the next part, which are endangered species because of habitat loss. So as you can see, there is another tiger in this slide, and that's because a lot of tigers that live in rainforests, and even white tigers known as Siberian tigers too, found in the northern parts of China and Russia, are being hunted, and also they are losing habitats because of climate change. So because the icebergs are melting, they don't have as many food, they don't have as much food around themselves. They are not able to travel as easily because the icebergs are breaking up and the polar ice sheets are breaking up. So they are losing their habitat that way too. There are also orangutans on that list. So orangutans can be found in Southeast Asia, and they are found in very warm climates where palm trees also grow, and they usually live in palm trees or jungles of palm trees. And these orangutans are actually lured out when their kids are caught and lured out, and the mothers and the rest of the tribe follows, meaning that the palm trees are okay to be cut down and for extraction of palm oil, which is manufactured and sold around the world. And there's a huge trade for that, even though it is illegal to throw out the habitats of orangutans. The next one on here are koalas, and this is actually not because of anything that humans are doing specifically, but in the long run we can see how koalas are also affected by this, and these are because of the Australian wildfires. So in 2019, for a few months, Australia was for a big part on fire, and that was because of their wildfire situation while the California wildfires were going on as well. And koalas, even though they're pretty well equipped to their habitat, they are not used to wildfires, so they do not have a defense mechanism to help themselves. So a lot of koalas actually burnt down, and even though they're not an endangered species, a lot of koalas died because of our effects on climate change, and that's why the wildfires were caused. Let's take a look at the next part. Let's talk about adaptability. So a lot of these animals we can see are pretty well adapted to their habitats. For example, let's talk about the saola in Vietnam. So saolas have antlers or horns at the top of their head, and these are beautiful antlers. And these are to defend themselves against their rivals if they're fighting, or even predators that try to attack them. But these are actually what is the cause for a lot of hunters and poachers for trying to kill them and take their horns, because they make great trophies. Another reason that saola is being hunted is because of their extremely thick skin, which can reach up to 2 millimeters, which is extremely thick for skin. And those make good fur coats, and just like the tiger's, carpets as well. They are very fast, but they're not faster than a bullet, which is unfortunately why they are being hunted. Let's take a look at the next one, which is the Siberian tiger. These are also tigers known as white tigers, and they're being hunted in the tundra, and also they're losing their habitats. So even though they're pretty well equipped to their habitats, so they have pale skin, they have pale stripes, they blend in pretty well with the snow, they are great at actually attacking their prey, and they run very fast. They have very powerful jaws and teeth to help them catch and feed on their prey. But this is why, one of the reasons why hunters are actually going after these, because they have such thick fur coats to fend against the cold, that hunters think that these fur coats will be pretty great for people as well, and that's why these tigers are being killed. And also for their teeth, because you can use them as jewelry and as trophies, which is extremely sick to think about. Let's go to the next part, which is koalas. Now koalas, even though they cannot fend against predators, they are very, very good with their habitats. So they have these rough patches or pads on their hands, and this is what they use to climb trees. And they also have a lot of fur at the bottom of their bodies, which a lot of mammals don't, because that's where the fecal matter comes out. Koalas do. It's because this allows them to actually sit on tree branches that are rough without getting stressed and without getting hurt. But as we could see from the Australian fires, they are not fireproof, and they were not built for habitats such that would light on fire very often, which is why climate change is to blame for that. Let's take a look at mammal biodiversity. So first of all, I like to say, disclaimer, we are in the midst of the 6th mass extinction. Now, this mass extinction wasn't supposed to come for a very, very long time, but because of humans and climate change, we have actually accelerated the 6th mass extinction, and it is very important to consider climate change in this, because it is a huge factor in what is happening right now. Now, mammals need to evolve at the same time and at the same rate that the extinctions are happening, or they won't last through the extinctions, which means that all life on Earth could be gone, or only some life could be spared, like the previous mass extinctions, and then evolve. So we have to be very careful, and we have to do our part, because we did start the acceleration of climate change. So it's very important to do what is necessary to help it too. So let's take a look at the solutions. What should we conserve and how? So let's take a look at keystone species. Keystone species are very important to a biosphere or a habitat. So keystone species are often species that other species are very dependent on. For example, the wolves in the picture. So a wolf is very important because it eats the deer, and the deers actually eat grass and trees and plants, which means that if the wolf goes away, and if the wolf goes extinct because of its skin, maybe it's getting hunted, then the deer will overpower the grass and will completely destroy the biosphere. So there won't be many plants, and if this keeps happening, they will become an invasive species. Also, otters are very important, like just the same way too, because otters actually eat sea urchins, which eat kelp. Now, if there were not enough otters to eat the sea urchins and maintain that balance, the sea urchins would eat all the kelp and then become an invasive species to other parts of the world. Let's go to the conclusion now. Now we have covered why mammals are very hard hit with climate change and why we need to conserve this. A lot of adaptations of animals actually lead to their demise. A lot of these adaptations are things that hunters are looking for, and people want these adaptations, like the Saola antlers and the tiger skin. So we need to be careful what we take from nature and return it in the same way, and we need to conserve our species, our keystone species, and change our ways, because it is time to fix what we have started. All right, thank you guys for listening. Here are some of my sources, and I hope you guys enjoyed today's lecture. Bye!